So in 2025 alone, you spoke to more than 35,000 people across 4 continents. So when you are in a room, whether that is for an AI summit or human rights conference, what is the one thing audiences consistently get wrong about the relationship between technology and women's freedom?
It's about thinking that responsibility is the enemy for speed and growth.
That drives me nuts. It is the bane of my existence.
Literally. And it's like, oh, we'll look at it later on. I'm like, honey, when? When are you going to look at it? You're going to build something that's already causing a disastrous effect, like these smart homes, you know? I was at this AI conference and I met this amazing man and I was like, cool, we're having coffee, you know, like these little coffee break chats. And he tells me he actually runs a smart home tech company and surveillance and security. I'm like, okay, dope. Like, and he's like, what do you do? And I said, well, actually, this is what I work on. And he was like, oh, I've never met anyone who works on tech and human rights. I'm like, well, congrats, you're on a chat. And yes, lucky winner. Yeah. And then we have a conversation and we actually ended up coming back to the topic of smart homes and the misuse of so-called smart technology to induce violence on people. And this guy, like, he had never thought of it. And he just was honestly, sincerely shocked. And he was very vulnerable and almost apologizing to me. And I'm like, that's not, like, please let it out and express yourself. But let's think of what now. Yeah. And he's asking me, he's like, what can I do? Because now, obviously, this technology is out there. It's a market. It's a business. You know, you can't always think of every single possible impact your product can have as well. Like, that's not what anybody is asking. But yeah, people do look at the environmental impact of their product, but what is the equality impact might not always be clear. So we're here having this conversation and he's asking me, what can we do? And I told him, well, I cannot necessarily give you the answers because obviously this is your journey, right? It's like we can have a conversation, but what I would say you do is have a conversation with the people affected by it. So reach out to your local gender-based violence organizations, women's organizations, invite them to come to your office and have a conversation with them. Open the conversation and build a bridge where there wasn't one if you actually care. And this can be very easily done by people who are building products. There are a lot of people out there who want to be heard. There are a lot of people from organizations of persons with disabilities, indigenous people, you know, youth organizations even, they're waiting to be invited to these spaces, whether it's, you know, even just for a conversation that might not even have to go that deep, but just to be heard and seen and then see what the next steps can be. What are the first things that could happen? You don't have to solve everything or create a perfect product because that's not possible. Again, perfection is not possible, but open your door. You know, before you launch, before, you know, you go out there and you tell the world that, you know, buy my product, this is a service that we're offering, have a think, you know, sit with yourself, think of the impact your product could have, specifically looking at marginalized groups in society, and have a heart-to-heart, have a conversation, show that you care. And that way you will really embody and communicate responsibility that then communicates in trust. Because ultimately, can you afford your product being dragged into some sort of scandal and crisis? I don't think so. So here again, responsibility is not the opposite of speed and growth. It's actually the way to get there in an ethical way.
Yeah, it's always been an argument I've had with people where we talk about tech and AI, and I'm an advocate for the progression and it's cool, but then I'm saying also on the flip side, we need to put guardrails to make sure that things are protected, like environment, people's safety, marginalized groups. And they say, oh, but it's going to stifle growth. And that's always kind of the typical argument. And I just think to myself, but firstly, also, yes, AI's moved quite a lot, but also what do you mean it's stifling growth? It's still in the growing phase. So it's not going to stifle anything, except now it's going to protect people, which is going to be so much better. So then the growth can be better for everyone rather than just growing for the sake of growing.
Literally was my point. I was at Africa Tech Week last week here in Cape Town, and I was preparing my notes. And before I'm giving speeches, I always like to call people in my network. And now in this case, I really wanted to speak to an amazing woman who works on the rights of persons with disabilities and tech and digital inclusion. So I called Boyd's Mello and I'm like, hey, like anything specific you're working on that I could put forward as an example. that you would like me to raise, because I have this chair, I have this seat on this panel, but it's not just me, it's all of us together. And she made this amazing point. She said, she's like, people still see that accessibility as a feature, because this one was specifically about economic participation in the panel.
Okay.
It's like people think that making a banking app accessible is just a burden, it's going to cost money, but it's like persons with disabilities are also a huge user base. Like if you had a banking app where the next upgrade and update wouldn't be just to add more extra colors or add a new logo or a font, but it would actually allow, persons who are visually impaired to, for instance, use this product better, it would create a huge market potential for people who are elderly at a later stage in life. Like making accessible products, again, it just makes it more accessible for you to grow your user base and have more clients. But this is still not taken seriously, because my hot take on this is, if you don't think about it, if you don't see the added value, do you care? I'm just going to put it out there. Like you can come forward and say, oh la la, inclusion, all this thing, responsible tech, whatever. I'm like, show me.
Yeah.
Show me that you care.
Oh, I love that. Sorry, I'm just getting so caught up in all these conversations. But I need to remember to rein myself in as well. So you've obviously spoken about Finland, and I know previously when you spoke, you said you used to live in South Africa, and then you moved back to Finland, and now you're back in South Africa, and it looks like you're kind of settling in now. You did your coaching and your studies here. So South Africa is known to be one of the most progressive constitutions on paper in the world, but it also has one of the most complex realities on the ground. So what does a conversation about tech and gender equality look and feel different here compared to that of Europe and the UN?
I think all of it is complementary, right? A conversation here benefits a conversation in Romania, a conversation, in Bangladesh, complements a conversation in Ireland. So it's all interconnected. And luckily, we have more and more of those conversations. I would say globally, a decolonial, anti-racist dimension and lens for the work that we're doing on tech and equality is not really there yet. It is there, but it's not there at the highest level yet. So that's definitely something that I find is missing more at global, international level. Not that there wouldn't be hundreds of millions of women who would want to have that conversation in those tech and equality conversations. But the higher up you go in systems, the wider it gets, the more classist it gets. So those people then often don't remember or don't think of it actively enough, or don't make space, again, coming back to that, to step aside and say, actually, I don't necessarily know what is best here. Let me invite someone who does. Amazing examples are coming from South Africa. One of my favorites is the Grit app. Have you heard of it?
Yes, I do know of the Grit. Yeah,
it's amazing.
If I'm not mistaken, I interviewed one of the engineers who launched the product. Forgotten her name now. But I've had her as a guest on the podcast. Nomvuyo, I think. Might be wrong. But I remember hearing about the Grid app, yes. And she was responsible in, the launch of it.
Yeah. So amazing innovation is coming from here, obviously, because you have such a strong movement and force that is in women, and that is in the unity and in the way that the movement has been shaped. And the footsteps of the people, again, that the women here right now in this day and age are walking in. There's a lot of power in that. So adding tech and being able to now more and more create your own apps, get more information on how to get funding for things, even though there's also, again, a very problematic lens there on like who gets funding and why and for what. But that's luckily still moving a little bit. So yeah, social impact tech is really looking amazing, I think, in South Africa. And the more conversations I'm having with people, the more impressed I am. Because there's folks who come from communities where they have lived experiences. And yeah, you'll see the same examples. I was at the AI for Good Summit in Geneva last summer, this UN initiative. I see amazing people with amazing solutions using tech. Like there's this company in Romania that creates, I think it's called Lumia. They create a wearable device that uses the same technology as self-driving cars to allow persons with with visual impairment, to move around in the world without having a seeing eye dog.
Amazing.
So you've got incredible products that are coming out, wearables in general that can help you track, your pain when it comes to endometriosis, that can, help you with fertility, whatever it is. We're looking at femtech, for instance. So incredible things are coming up, but I find there's a certain kind of uniqueness of the products and in the space when it comes to social impact tech and gender equality and digital solutions in South Africa that I am so privileged and so lucky to get to witness. I feel like such a lucky woman in my life to have had this journey that I've had, and now being able to be here and also just observe and give what I have and say, this is my 2 cents. Let me watch you. Let me watch you grow and let me watch you bloom, because you've got everything it takes. And I'm not here to tell anybody what to do. I'm a guest, and there's room for everybody.
I love that you said that as well, because I've said it before and I'll say it again. Africa will solve the world's problems. I'm fully convinced, because just the challenges are different. The infrastructure challenges, just everything is just so different to a more developed nation or first world country. But there was an interesting term that I think we hear quite a lot on social media, but I don't know if a lot of people know what it truly means. But if you can just expand a little bit on it. You mentioned about like decolonising or decolonising tech, or what do you mean by that? What does that look like?
How much time do we have?
As quickly as you can succinct that.
Well, to begin with, we have to have tech that's not built by white people for white people, to begin with. If the mainstream accessible tech that is out there is built on data sets that are not inclusive, that's already the big tools that we have to even start are not serving everybody. Where's the funding going in general? Is it going for solutions that are coming from the global majority or not? And at the moment, it is most definitely not. Money is moving in circles where people know one another, where white supremacy is still a huge added value, and controls a lot of the movements of money that then allow people whether they can grow or not. Because once you have one investor, you can attract another. But if you don't get the first one, you might not get the second one. Also, having trauma-informed products, I think in general, is a big dimension of decolonial work in tech, because we don't all have the same starting points and accessibility measures as well. We can't be creating tech that's a one-size-fits-all. So those are definitely some of the big ones. And looking at tech policy as well. Like, we can often talk about tech solutions and how to create inclusive tech and inclusive products themselves, but how are we regulating it? I was very, very lucky and privileged to be sitting in the rooms in the European Parliament where the AI Act was negotiated. So the first ever international AI regulation package at the time. There's been more movements since.
Still working on ours in South Africa, as I'm sure you saw what happened
as an open wound. Yeah. So the AI Act in Europe, I was working more on the human rights dimension on that, but there is no way that I would be able to single-handedly, as a white woman from a Northern European country, to put forward the amendments and the needs and the demands of racialized people and indigenous people as well, the best way that those organizations that have the lived experience have. So again, pulling out another chair, giving a mic and saying, what do you want? What are your specific needs? And recognizing the fact and checking in with myself and say, I'm not the only one who can know. It's my responsibility to listen, take notes, and be the person who invites these people into the parliament as well. But you know that, like, in Europe, we've got an indigenous population that lives in the northern parts of Europe. So over what we now know as Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Russia, there's an indigenous land there called Sápmi. And Sami people are very often not even invited in conversations on anti-racism and EU policy, because they're just completely erased from textbooks.
To be honest, I've never even heard of Sami people. Sure.
So, for instance, when I was growing up in Finland, the horrible violations and forced, from everything from forced sterilizations to forced schools and just erasure in general, their dignity, rights, access to land and livelihoods was not in the school books that I was reading when I was, in the early 90s in Finland. So already knowing that we were not taught those things, I had to recognize and be confronted with my own privilege and ignorance, which I still do very often. And learn and unlearn a lot of stuff. And in order for me to then say, okay, if I'm a human rights expert working in the European Parliament, I don't know everything. I know what I know, and I will keep learning. But I will make sure that the folks whose rights are also impacted by AI and in tech comes down to, for instance, like in tech, this goes so much beyond than just the tech policy or the tech products, because we're looking at energy uses, for instance. And I'm making this connection. You can tell my brain goes like in a million directions.
I think that's many a times women is just, there's that one video where the guy says, this is how men think. Here's the box for the car. Here's the box for the house. Here's this. Woman, all of them run together. It's like electricity currents.
So that's the power. That's the power. That's the energy we need in the world.
I'm telling you.
But maybe just the last point on this, that when we think about inclusive tech, decolonial tech, we look at the products, we look at the users, we look at the data sets, we look at, in this case, at the policy, but we must also look at energy usage. Like there's so many different types.
Where's the energy AI coming in and all these data centers? Right. Energy usage is, I'm looking at billions coming into this country for data centers, which is exciting investment, but we already have an energy crisis in this country. So
an energy crisis is also a very racist issue, environmental racism. We see this a lot happening around the world as well. And now we're trying to get more green energy in Finland by putting, windmills on indigenous land. So this is another example of it. Like we can't just talk about decolonizing tech as a one side, fit. Like this is what it is.
Like you said, the one size fits all doesn't work.
And again, we need to be having these conversations. We need to be sitting here, but we must also be listening a lot and understanding that there's so much more to go, and looking at the products that are out there very critically and saying, where can this get better and who can I call next time when I have a panel, or next time I'm inviting a guest who hasn't been here and whose story is not being told, and who could teach people by their presence, their lived experience, and how can I create the circumstances for that person to feel safe enough and not exploited for entertainment or for dramatic stories. That's not what it's about. It's about actual presence. It's about human connection. It's about that inner development that we spoke about. Because policy can always be written. We can find the words for the inclusion campaign and the diversity inclusion work, which is very important. But at the same time, it's about that inner work that we all must do.
And that presence. Thank you for explaining so beautifully to decolonize, not just tech, but just the thinking as well and the things around it. Because you obviously see it, the word is thrown a lot around on Instagram, but I don't think a lot of people really have an idea as to what does that look like. Because people, you find, get very keyboard warrior online, and then they get defensive. And it's like, oh, so should we just rip the entire system apart? And, it becomes very... he said, she said, they said, etc., kind of thing. So thank you for explaining that so beautifully. I think it will probably help a lot of people to understand and grasp what that means a lot better.
I'll take that, and thank you for that. But I also want to just acknowledge this is my 2 cents. This is what I've learned so far, and this is the amount of information I can share from an honest place with myself and my own shortcomings and my own desire to grow. And maybe just really hope that people just look up, find one book, start doing the work. It can be silent, it can be quiet. You can read 10 pages a day and expand your mind. Because if you believe in the goodness in the world and you want to become a better person, it's all about the little steps. It's about the one pivot turn, You're never going to be perfect. There's no such thing, but you can all read 2 pages, 10 pages, listen to an audiobook. If you really want that, we can.
Awesome. And then our last question before we get into the quick fire. So your message is that there's much that can go wrong in tech, but there's also so much that can go right. So for someone who's listening who feels overwhelmed by how fast things are moving and how high the stakes feel, what do you actually want them to walk away believing?
I'm going to start with a deep breath, because I think that's maybe the main thing that we should all walk away with. Is that there is so much hope still out there. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're thinking about the impact of tech and human rights and AI, and it's causing confusion, maybe fatigue, you want to give up, whatever. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath and look at your life. This is a coaching technique as well. We all have certain things in our life that we have control over, and there's things that we don't have control over. And there's this model that basically instructs us to think that there's certain things that we often think is like, I'm the victim of these circumstances. I can't control that. That is too much. So I'm just going to freeze and do nothing. Or the other side, which is like the eldest daughter who is like, I'm going to fix everything. I got to do everything. I'm going to do everything. I need to do this. I need to find the solutions. But both of them are going to end up overwhelming us one way or another. And the emotional intelligence that we as growing and learning from each other as we grow helps us understand that multiple things can be true at the same time. So there's a lot to be afraid of, but there's a lot of goodness out there that we can impact and promote and put forward. And right now, in that one breath, you are rooted in this very moment. And in this very moment, you're actually not alone. And I think it's that feeling of overwhelm where we feel like, I am tired. Things are out of my control, but I do want to control things because I have this agency and I have this responsibility. Take a deep breath, anchor, and remember that you're in the footsteps of so many women, so many queer people, so many Black people, Indigenous people, and multiple other people who came from systems that stripped away their dignity. But yet somehow we're here now. Somehow we got to this point because we didn't give up. We didn't give in to this overwhelm and let it, just things are the way they are. So if we got this far, how could we say we're not going to go forward? Like, of course we're going to move forward. And when we're resting, when we're sleeping and taking care of our bodies and understanding that there's this duality of things we can control and things we cannot, rest is the part in between that allows us to connect to the dream space. And the dream space allows us to remember that there's hope, that we're doing this because we have a vision of something better. And rest also allows other people in other time zones to do the work. So there's this like global energy that is moving at the moment because these are global problems. And releasing that sort of black and white thinking of tech is good, tech is bad, staying informed, taking deep breaths, resting, tapping into community, new readings helps a lot.
Oh, I love that. Now I hope everyone understands why I was fangirling from the beginning, because now I feel like so pepped and motivated, like, yes, I can do hard things. Now moving into the quick fire. Just moving my little paper around. So these are just quick fire, first word or sentence that comes to mind. So these will be a quick one and then we'll be wrapping up. So number one, if you could change people's perception about one thing when it comes to tech inequality, what would it be?
That the game is not over.
Love that. If you could have one superpower, what would it be and why?
That everybody should tap into their spiciness a little bit more.
Oh,
because the world would do better if we would remember to loosen up a little bit. And
everything's not so serious.
Yes, and that there is a lot of, I don't know, just spice in the air. There's magic in life as well. And we are keeping ourselves in a box if we keep thinking that life isn't wonderful.
Yes.
And it is. The door is always open for learning, but to having more fun as well.
No, I love that. And 3, if you're not, you don't read a lot of fiction books, so the question is, if there was a book that you could live in, which one would it be and why? But if you're not a fiction reader, what is a book, podcast, or resource that you think every woman in a position of influence should read or listen to?
Rest is Resistance. I'm going to come back to that. Trisha Hersey, the founder of the NAP Ministry, wrote this amazing book. It's a beautiful decolonial book against, the exploitative nature of capitalism as we know it now.
Oh.
And really, really, it's like a little manifesto. It's very easily, you can read it easily. It's one of those books that I find everybody should be circulating at work.
Okay.
Like it's a little short book, but it really reminds you of the power of rest and allowing yourself to just be and not be constantly in survival mode, but really looking at it from an anti-racist point of view as well, is to say, why did we get here and how? And why does the need to disrupt the system also starts with collective rest and care?
Love that. And the last question, 3 people, dead or alive, that you would have over for a dinner party.
3?
Sorry, it's only limited to 3.
Okay, can I break the rules?
Yeah?
Okay. I would invite my 3 besties. One who lives in Finland, who has known me for over 30 years. One who is a radical girl who lives here in South Africa. And one who lives in New York, who loves my soul and my spirits. I would invite the 3 of them because they know me well enough to know that I would want to invite more people. So they would break the rules. We would build a big table, and I would bring all the incredible people that I have spread out around the world, and we would have a big table, and we would break the rules and smile.
Amazing. I love it. A little rule breaker.
Just for love, though.
Just for love. Thank you so much, Annika, for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And I hope that everyone who listened or watched really enjoyed it. I'm sure they're going to walk away with a lot to think about.
I hope so. Thanks, Nicky. Thanks for your energy and your lights and your passion. It's a gift.
Thank you.